I'm Brad Green.
Hello, I'm Igor.
If you've been following our team for a while, you know we're a group that's driven by our principles. So this morning, we're going to talk about one of our core principles, which is being, hopefully, good caretakers of the Angular community and the Angular code base. But practically what we're going to talk about is why we're here, where Angular 1 is going, and where we see Angular going in the future. I hope you like it.
But before we start, we should give our thanks to the ng-conf organizers. I bet that many of you don't know that, let's give it all I bet that many of you don't know that ng-conf is not organized by somebody at Angular, an Angular team, or at Google. It is completely community-driven.
So we've already given welcome. So we can go to maybe thanking the people who are with us on the live stream. We've already thanked them a little bit, but maybe one more little round of applause for everybody who's tuned in from home.
Hi, guys. It was midnight last Sunday. We were working on this presentation together with Brad, and we asked ourselves a simple question. Why are we here? We thought about it. It's very simple. Why are we here? Why are we doing Angular? And then we realized that we never answered this question to you. So we scrapped the presentation we've been working on for a month, and we started from scratch.
When we started Angular in 2009, answering this question was really easy. We were trying to make ourselves much more production in building web applications. We were building Angular for us.
Angular really solved these problems for us, and it solved problems for you too. You adopted it, and you became part of it. Not only did you adopt Angular, you contributed to Angular. You contributed code, documentation, videos, and tutorials and more. In this way, Angular was not just about us anymore, and we felt this trust that you gave to us, and felt the responsibility that came with it.
So over the last 5 years, many of you have also told us that Angular is solving your problems. It's gone from something that's just been for us here at Google to something that a lot of people around the world enjoy.
In the past presentations, we've always paid special attention to the community and the Angular ecosystem. We think that Angular, even if it was technically flawless, could never be successful without you. We also think that the development we do on Angular and the way we do it results in superior results.
So today we're going to talk about how we're evolving the Angular of today, given this responsibility that you're trusting us with. But because of this, we're also going to talk about how we think we want to evolve Angular in the future and why we're going to work on Angular 2.
Yeah. Let's take a look at how we work. I mentioned that the way we develop Angular results in superior results. And there are actually 3 commonly used development models that we see out there. There is closed source, there is open source export, and there is open source export with, or open source with deep community involvement. The difference between these is in how the control and the workload is distributed, and how the feedback is looped back into those who have the control and do the work.
So the main differences between these are the distribution of control and how the feedback is being looped back into those who have the power to do the work. In the closed source project, the team does all the work, but they don't share the source code, and they get to listen to only the feedback that they want to.
With open source export, the team shares the code and tolerates forks, but they don't really accept any changes back into the main repository, and they get to pick only the feedback they want to hear.
We believe Angular belongs in this last category.
So this way of building Angular, we are able to build software that is more robust because it takes more use cases and perspectives into account. It also results in software that has more integration points. So it fits better into existing ecosystem. And because of the higher adoption rate and contribution rate, it's also software that has fewer bugs.
And we hope that this process, where all of you can be part of the Angular community and its work is a more trustworthy model. And trust, it's kind of a hard thing to measure, but we think it's really important.
Trust and software quality benefits aside, we also get to work with very many talented people inside of Google, but also outside. And we are very grateful that we get to call these people our friends. And many of you have joined us today, either in person or virtually.
One of the last big benefits we've had on the Angular team from this model is our ability to hire some really high-quality people. For most of the people that we've brought on recently, we've actually gotten to know you by your contributions to the Angular community.
Let's talk about how the ng team or the core team expanded over the last year.
Yeah, so last year when we were here at ng-conf, we talked about how our team had grown up until 2014. Well, we've continued to grow and expand based on the expansion of the Angular community and with all of the projects we've undertaken.
But not only did we hire more people for the core team, we also took many of you that were active participants in Angular development and made them core team members on the Angular team. These include people like Martin Staffa and Shahar Tomi, but also developers sponsored by companies that are working with us on the team.
So Igor, why would a company sponsor their developers to work full-time on Angular?
Well, this is what Amadeus did. They realized that they were betting big on Angular, and they wanted to have a stake in its future. They didn't want to sit on sidelines and just watch where the main Angular is going. They wanted to be participant in this, and they decided to invest in the Angular core development and have a stake in its future direction. We thought about this, and we realized that this wasn't such a crazy idea. And because the developers were led by Pavel Kozlovsky, a well-known figure in the Angular community, we felt pretty comfortable about taking them on board.
Yeah, so this development model where big companies invest in Angular actually allows us to scale faster and do more, and we'd like to see more of it. If any of your companies are interested in this, the first step is being seen as a contributor to the Angular community.
Back in October, we announced that Pete Bacon-Darwin took over as the Angular 1 lead. I was the previous lead on Angular 1, but other projects like internationalization, our CI infrastructure, package management, and bits of Angular 2 were distracting me and were not allowing me to focus on Angular as much as it deserved. This is why Pete stepped up, and with Pete and the team around, now we have a dedicated person to lead and evolve Angular further.
So as a lot of you are happy to tell us, you've picked Angular as your solution for building web apps, and that we can't stop in evolving its future, and we agree.
When we ask you, what were the most pressing issues in Angular 1.3, you told us that the routing was too limiting, that building applications for users that were in more than one region was too difficult because of insufficient internationalization support. And you also told us that you really liked the performance benefits we delivered in Angular 1.3, and you didn't want us to stop there.
So some of the big work we're doing feature-wise for Angular 1 is work that we're going to share with Angular 2, starting with the router. We built this new router for Angular 2 and then backported it to Angular 1. It focuses on mobile use cases and complex situations in big apps. Brian will talk about the new router later today. You can hear all about it. Internationalization is important on desktop, but it's actually critical on mobile where you're trying to penetrate emerging markets. So you can hear about this from Chiraya, who's going to come up and talk about this new module for Angular. Better performance and the rest of the improvements in 1.4 are going to be covered by Lucas and Pavel at the talk right after this one today.
So the 1.4 release candidate will be out in the next week or two, and this will make it the fastest release we've ever made. I would like to thank Pete and the rest of the team for improving our processes, which made it possible to deliver these features to you as quickly as we did.
Good job, Pete. Okay, while we're on the topic of Angular 1 development, we should give you an update on our material design project.
So material design is Google's answer to single UI specification that spans desktop, tablets, mobile phones, also wearable devices. With Angular Material, what we did is we implemented this specification using Angular directives.
So Angular Material is now in beta release. We've got 29 of the most commonly used material design widgets developed. They're built for mobile, they look beautiful, and they're built to address accessibility out of the box.
Along with these components, we also built an application-oriented layout system that is based on Flexbox. And we added theme support so that you can customize the look and feel of your application.
So we're headed towards a 1.0 release for Angular material on Angular 1 this summer. And after we get that work completed, we're going to start delivering this beautiful experience for Angular 2.
With 1.4 almost finished, we have started to look towards where Angular 1 is heading. What's next for it? And because we expect that many of you will want to migrate to Angular 2 as quickly as possible, we're setting the primary theme for the future Angular releases to be the paving the path to Angular 2. But we want to take your input into account as well. So we're going to listen to your feedback and use that to gauge which priorities or which features we should prioritize.
While we're on Angular 1, we should talk about how we're going to support it. When we were at NG Europe back in October, we showed that there were over 1,600 applications written in Angular checked into Google's source code repository. Now there are nearly 2,000, and we're really excited about how fast this is growing at Google.
Every month, nearly 1 million of you visit angularjs.org, and about 100,000 of you interact with the Angular team on GitHub.
We often get asked the question, because you guys and actually a lot of developers at Google rely on Angular 1 today, how are we going to split our development between Angular 1 and Angular 2?
We want to drive our development based on your feedback, and we want to split the time we spend between Angular 2 and Angular 1 based on where you're spending your time.
So our website at angularjs.org is where we all go right now for documentation, news, and other Angular resources. Today, I'd like to announce our preview site for Angular 2 at angular.io. We're going to use the traffic between these two sites to gauge interest in the community as to where you're spending your time, along with interactions on GitHub and other sources.
We'll use these signals to decide where to invest. But one of the primary principles we'll use is that we'll continue releasing Angular 1 releases until vast majority of you migrate to Angular 2.
So we're also going to keep track of this and make the numbers public. We'll release them online and at conferences like this one, so we can all together decide where we're going to invest in the future of Angular.
This will actually put the burden on us to make Angular 2 more attractive, easy to learn, and easy to migrate to.
So now that we've said we have some migration that's going to happen, we better have a plan.
We thought about this, and we came up with two strategies. We labeled them Big Bang and Incremental.
In the Big Bang scenario, this is where you would decide that we're going to stop feature development on Angular 1, migrate all of our templates and JavaScript to Angular 2, make sure it all works, and then resume feature development.
This is the approach that you might want to use if you want to take advantage of all the features of Angular 2 as quickly as possible. There will be actually some teams at Google that will do just this.
So because the incremental strategy that we're going to talk about in a minute is going to require that you load both Angular 1 and Angular 2 libraries, this Big Bang strategy might also be most appropriate if you've got a mobile app or other scenarios where the total payload size is really important.
We also understand that this Big Bang strategy is not for all of you. And this is why we also have a second plan, incremental strategy. And a new router that Brian's going to talk about in a bit supports this one. And there are actually two options. One is you start using your application, you keep on developing your Angular application as you are today, but you start migrating Angular, some of the views to Angular 2. And the new router will support mixing and matching both versions.
You can also go the other route, where you rewrite your top-level application controller using the new router to build a shell for your app. And then, one by one, you can migrate your individual views to Angular 2.
For now, we are planning to provide migration guide. And John Papa yesterday committed to helping us write it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. We are also thinking of how could we help you with tooling. We have some ideas about this, but we still need to think through this.
Right. But you don't have to wait for us. One of the best ways you can prepare for Angular 2 is to follow the best practices that we know on Angular 1. John Papa and Todd Motto have consolidated these into an online style guide, and John will present these at his talk later tomorrow.
We already mentioned that one of the entry paths, one of the possibilities is using the new router. And together with ES6 modules and ES6 in general, this will make the migration easier. Brian will cover this later today.
Lastly, if you're using TypeScript, you can get more help from your IDE when you go to refactor and migrate your code to Angular 2. You can hear more about the details of what a migration strategy might look like from Michal in his talk on the subject tomorrow.
To summarize the themes for Angular 1, we are delivering or working on some exciting new features like router, internationalization, material design, but we are also committed to supporting you, and we have a dedicated team for that. We are also working on migration strategies to help you to get to Angular 2.
All right, so now let's talk about Angular 2 and why you'd want to migrate in the first place.
Over the past 5 years, we had the privilege to work with thousands of developers from Google or outside. And we listened to their feedback, and we kind of summarized that feedback into several themes. You said that you wanted more consistency in Angular applications, more simplicity.
You want it to be more flexible. You want it to be much faster. And all of this should sum up to being more productive developers.
When we looked at where we were and where you wanted us to be, we realized that we couldn't get there with the Angular 1 architecture. At least not without making very painful breaking changes. This is why we came up with Angular 2.
So Angular 2 is now in alpha. And you can go see its status on angular.io. While it's not ready for building production applications quite yet, we did want to cover what we've done to date.
As you probably haven't had a chance to work with Angular 2 yet, you might be wondering, how is Angular 2 different? Are the features that I like in Angular still there? How will the investment I made into learning Angular and writing Angular applications map to this new framework?
So, while the syntax and semantics have changed a bit from Angular 1, you're going to find, I think, all of the things that you grew to know and love about Angular 1 already in Angular 2. From dependency injection, data binding directives, to Karma protractor and the rest of the testing story, accessibility, and the rest, all improved across the board.
We're really excited about the simplification of many of the existing concepts, but we're also very excited about adding new, very powerful ones. We're going to cover many of these over the next 2 days, but let's talk about some of them now.
Let's talk about productivity. This has been a theme in Angular from the very beginning. In Angular 1, we limited ourselves to building productivity enhancements with just what the browser gave to us at the time, and we made it pretty far. Recently, in the last year, we've been focused on making developer productivity enhancements to JavaScript itself.
Last year, at NG Europe, we announced AtScript. This was our answer to looking at what developers needed when building Angular applications. And it was a proposal how we could extend JavaScript and make it evolve.
So starting with ECMAScript 5, or what we just call JavaScript today, we wanted to see if we could help to move the ECMAScript 6 adoption faster by supporting it in Angular and promoting it here. We love ES6 for its basic developer productivity features and in help avoiding language pitfalls.
We also got excited about optional type system as delivered in in TypeScript. And Dan and Andrew are going to talk more about this later today.
Yeah. And lastly, we wanted to be able to express metadata concepts about our code. Annotations allow us to do this, and they allow us to much more succinctly express what we need to do when we define data binding and directives in Angular.
But we didn't want to create a language extension that was specific to Angular. The types and metadata annotations, these are generic features that any developer can benefit from. And this is from the day one. We decided that whatever we are going to work on within this area of language extensions, it is something that we want to take to TC39 and standardize as a regular feature in the JavaScript platform.
Yeah, we've made some progress there. One of the parts of the TC39 process that's really critical is to show, in some live examples, how some of these proposed extensions are actually good. And so we worked with Eric Arvidsson and other members of the V8 team on Chrome at Google to build the features of AtScript into Tracer. Now, Tracer is a transpiler that takes features of the proposed standards in ECMAScript 6, 7, and now AtScript, and translates them into JavaScript that works in today's browsers. And so using Tracer and AtScript syntax, we've been developing Angular 2 successfully for over a year now.
After an announcement about AtScript, we found that there are many people that care about the same things we do. We talked to the Chrome's team building V8 that not only is implementing the ES6 features into the VM, but they're also working on creating a sound type system that will deliver faster performance and more predictable performance for JavaScript applications. We also talked to Clojure compiler team at Google, which is also working on adding ES6 support to Clojure compiler, in addition to adopting TypeScript-style types annotations. These are the tools that will enable us to take advantage of these features before they are baked into the browser. And we also talked to Facebook team that works on Flow, and we had really good discussions about JavaScript and types in JavaScript.
We've also had many good conversations with some of our friends at Microsoft on the TypeScript team. In fact, we've made so much progress with them, I'd like to bring them on stage now. Please welcome Jonathan Turner, who's a program manager for TypeScript.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Igor. Really excited to be at ng-conf in beautiful Salt Lake City. It's a fantastic venue, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conference. So I want to take us back to November of last year and talk about a collaboration that started between the Angular team and the TypeScript team. When Angular announced AtScript and some of the features that they wanted to see part of JavaScript, the JavaScript standard, a better declarative way for working with rich libraries like Angular, the TypeScript team got really interested. So we reached out and we formed a collaboration. We met up and started talking about what would be possible if we started taking some of those features that they had as part of AtScript and put them into TypeScript, merged it with the type system, merged it with how the compiler output JavaScript code. So I remember sitting around a table with Mishko and with Anders from the TypeScript team, looking at these problems and kind of solving these engineering problems one by one. As we saw earlier, we had this nice ideal of these layers where ES5, ES6 builds on ES5. We've got types on top of that and annotations on top of that. But as we're starting to unpack each of these problems, we had to be kind of honest. Back in November, what the actual reality was kind of not so clean. Each piece needed a couple more features to bring it up to maturity. So the TypeScript team took this on in our challenging, loving selves as engineers, looked at it and started tackling it. So we tackled it in two ways. The first way is that we started incorporating more and more of ES6 into TypeScript. And with TypeScript 1.5, which is the upcoming version of TypeScript, we will now have very rich support for ES6 in TypeScript. We also worked with the Angular team closely to incorporate annotations. So we have a nice declarative way of working with libraries like Angular, where you can have a nice separation of concerns. And we took the Angular feedback, and we also worked with Yehuda Katz from the Ember team and with Rob Eisenberg to create a nice, rich design that we then implemented as part of TypeScript. I'm happy to announce today that the next version of TypeScript really fills out this story, where we have ES5 and types sitting on top of ES6 and annotations working well with types. We have nice tooling across all of these features and nice ES3 and ES5 output as part of this. We're really excited. Thank you. We're really excited to see what you all do, and I look forward to hearing from you later. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks so much to the rest of the TypeScript team. So, with this convergence, we're happy to announce that we're going to retire the term AtScript, and we're just going to call it all TypeScript from here on out. You can hear more about how TypeScript works with Angular 2 in a talk that Jonathan and his partner will do tomorrow.
Well, we are incredibly excited about all these new features and productivity wins that our collaboration with TypeScript will give us. I want to stress one thing. All of these features will be completely optional. You'll be able to take advantage of Angular 2, whether you're using ES5, the new standard ES6, or you can go all the way in with all the optional types and annotations provided by TypeScript.
But we're not done. For this to become a standard, all of our partners are going to have to come together, and we'll need even more partners to make this happen.
This is a very long-term investment, just like Angular 2. We think that this is a really hard problem, but it's a hard problem that is worth solving.
So while we're on the subject of other language options, we should talk a little bit about our investment in Dart. If you use Dart, you're probably happy about it. But if you don't, you might ask us, why are you supporting Dart? Well, the simple reason is that you benefit from this in a couple ways. Number one is you have a much larger team working on Angular because of it. And number two, we've learned a lot from our relationship with the Dart team. And we benefit from these learnings in the JavaScript side of Angular.
Right. Some of you might know that we've had version of Angular for Dart for over a year now. We built it because there were teams at Google that wanted to use Angular with Dart. And they funded our team expansion to get it done. But we had a problem. We were not working as a single team. We were two teams, each working on separate innovations.
One of the things we realized, though, was that the majority of Angular code is purely algorithmic. And what we imagined was that maybe we could write all of it in one language and transpile to another language. And we've done this, and this has allowed us to join the two teams.
We have a process in place that allows us to design and implement every feature in Angular using AtScript, or now TypeScript. We then transpile this into Dart or JavaScript. And for the calls or for the code that needs to touch browser APIs, we write facades, both in Dart and JavaScript. Then we combine this output into a package that we ship as Angular 2 for JS or Angular 2 for Dart.
So again, what this means to you is that there's now a team of Angular that's double the original size working on all the features for you. From performance to the new templates, ITN, accessibility, all of it has a much bigger team building Angular today.
We should thank the Dart team for the great partnerships we had with them. Casper Lund helped us rewrite our expression parser to be much more efficient. We got the idea of zones from Dart. And we also saw the benefits of optional type system while building large applications in Angular Dart. These are all the features that we'll be able to take advantage of in Angular 2, whether you're using JavaScript or Dart.
Yeah. OK, while we're kind of on this subject, we should also talk about something that I have a sense is going on, where when there's two technologies in a space that cover the same feature set, there's some idea that they must go head to head, that two will enter and one will leave. So whether it's Angular versus React or JavaScript versus Dart, we don't really see it that way.
Take Ember as an example. Yehuda, as was mentioned, helped us with designing the annotations for TypeScript. But also, we had really good collaboration with the Ember CLI teams and the Broccoli teams. Steph and Joe understood that working together will allow us to get more done faster, and this will be and we will get benefits that will be available to both Ember and Angular communities.
So wherever possible, we would love it if you guys could help support us in engendering a kinder attitude towards collaboration in the open source community. Because this is really the promise of open source. If it looks good, just copy it in. We think we can get a lot more done if we can all work together and even be friends. When you guys talk to us, you tell us that Angular is awesome, but it could be a little easier to learn. There's parts of Angular that, well, there's actually a lot of concepts to learn. Some of the errors may come as surprises, and some of the APIs, maybe directives in particular, are just downright hard to learn.
Ben depicted his experience with learning Angular using this diagram. It looks like a very exciting but bumpy roller coaster ride. It is our goal to straighten this line for everybody in Angular 2.
So Igor, maybe tell us, how did we get here? Why is it not a smooth line in Angular 1?
It's all my fault. Now, in the early days, 5 years ago, Angular was simple. We designed it with the focus on productivity, reducing boilerplate, making testability easy, and providing us with structure. But the use cases we were targeting back then were much more limited than those that we deal with when building complex applications today. Take components as a good example. When Angular started, there were no components in Angular. We just had templates and controllers and a way to bind the two. But as we were building bigger and bigger applications at Google or outside, we realized that this was not going to scale, that we needed a better way to address composition and reusability. And the component model was something that we needed. We implemented it, and it was awesome. It took off, but now we had two ways of doing many of the same use cases. And there was a confusion. In Angular 2, we're solving this problem, but completely embracing the component model and making it the default. This will remove a lot of confusion that exists in Angular 1. This is just one of the examples.
So when we looked at all of that we've learned from you over the last 5 years of Angular, it pointed to the fact that we could be much simpler and that we should go this way for Angular 2.
One of the first areas we looked at were the directives that we ship with Angular. There were many of them, and we realized that we could just reduce them to 4 generic templating concepts. This means that the API service is much smaller for you to learn, and you will be able to get done the same stuff you were able to do with Angular 1.
So this generalization doesn't just make Angular easier to develop for, but it makes your applications more consistent. We mentioned the style guide for Angular 1, but unlike Angular 1, Angular 2 is going to have a style guide from the very start.
But we won't stop with the style guide. We're actually building a tool chain that will help you create and refactor your application as you build it. We're not, however, starting from scratch here. We have these great partnerships with TypeScript and Ember CLI, which allow us to make a good progress. We don't have enough to show at this conference yet, but be assured that we are working on it. Not invented here is not something that is dear to our hearts. Brad, have you ever tried to include a jQuery UI component in your Angular application and realized that it wasn't working until you called $apply?
I always do that.
See, we solved this in Angular 2. We're using this nifty feature called zones that we learned about from Dart. And what the zones allows us to do is to hook into the browser event system and intercept those events that are interesting and trigger the synchronization between Angular and the rest of the platform.
Very cool. As a matter of fact, we talked about zones when we were here last year, and you can find the talk by Brian Ford on YouTube if you want to learn more. So unidirectional data flow is at the heart of the new change detection strategy for Angular 2. And what this means for you is that you can easily predict what the performance characteristics will be of any change you make to the system. It'll also make it much clearer as to what's happening when you see side effects that you don't understand.
If you're wondering if you'll still be able to use two-way data binding with forms using engine model, rest assured that what we are building, even though under the hood works differently, for you as developers, you will still have declarative syntax that is very familiar to you.
So maybe you're like me, and you've spent some time developing some Angular code, and you've made some hard-to-find typo somewhere, maybe in your template, or controller, or directive. In Angular 2, we've made the syntax change so that it can be statically analyzed by linters and IDEs. And this means that we can find the problems for you before you ever have to run it in a browser.
As our repertoire of use cases expanded, we realized that we need to add more features to existing APIs. For example, directives. We added more features, but by doing so, we made the API much more complex. In Angular 2, we are building 3 special case APIs for different scenarios, so that you don't need to wonder which options to use. You'll be able to just go for either component or behavior directive, and you'll get all the default options out of the box. We love it when a web platform evolves and makes our lives simpler. A lot of the simplicity in Angular 2 is because we're able to take advantage of browser features that just recently were made available to us. A good example of this is the ECMAScript module system. With ES6, we now have a single module system that we can rely on. This was not something that we had when we started with Angular 1. For browsers that don't support these features yet, we have transpilation or shimming that will just make it work and will bridge the gap.
Yeah. Similarly, when we wrote directives for Angular 1, there was no analog for this in the web spec. But today, with web components, we can take advantage of many of the features in there to do some of the work that we used to do. With features like the template element and the shadow DOM, a lot of our code goes away. To sum it up, we're basing Angular on some of these new standards that's going to make it much easier for us to interoperate with other libraries and preserve our longevity into the future.
When we started working on Angular 2, we made a decision to focus on performance from day one. When we were working on Angular 1.3, one of the things we realized was we didn't have a good way to measure performance. We also didn't understand how and where the time is spent in the browser. What we did is we built a suite of benchmarks. One of them we called Deep Tree. This benchmark allows us to replicate behavior similar to that we see in complex Angular application. In order to understand how fast can we be, we built a baseline implementation of the benchmark. We used just pure JavaScript, no Angular, and all the performance trick we could come up with. The code is super ugly. You would never want to write an application in this way. But it just tells us what is the theoretical maximum that any framework on the browser platform can achieve. To start with, let's look at how well Angular 1.3 is doing.
So then we started to look at what takes time in Angular and where could we be faster. Mishko came in one day with a crazy idea on how we could maybe make the code that we generate easier for virtual machines to inline. This technique we now have named ultra-fast change detection is almost 10 times faster than what we can do on Angular 1. And it's all because of the new architecture for our code. This, combined with several other changes that we were able to make because of our new architecture, we become dramatically faster for Angular 2.
Another performance trick that this new architecture allowed us to use was something that we knew about for a long time, but we just couldn't use in Angular 1. In Angular 1, whenever we destroy a view, we have to throw away all of the data structures and DOM that was created for that view. In Angular 2, we know when it's safe to reuse these data structures in DOM, and this makes rendering similar components much faster. The impact of this is the most visible in two use cases, in infinite scrolling and in back and forth navigation in the application.
Yeah, so the way you can think about this is the yellow bar for Angular 2 out of the box is first-time rendering speed. Angular 2 with view cache is the behavior you get when users revisit things that have already been rendered for you. But there's more.
The last performance...
Wait. No, there's even more.
Oh.
Yeah. So speed is not the only thing that comes into play. When your memory is limited on desktop, or in particular on mobile devices, it's really critical that you become conservative with how much memory you use. Because when the garbage collector runs, it can slow down your app. It turns out that these changes we've made are not only faster, but they're much more memory efficient.
Can I go now?
Now you can go.
The last performance trick we want to show to you is how Angular 2 can take advantage of immutable data structures. We already mentioned that in Angular 2, we have a new change detection system. And this new system is much more flexible than the one we have in Angular 1. What it allows us to do is to treat different objects differently. So when we come across an object that we recognize as an immutable data structure, we know that we don't need to do check it because it's not going to change. This can have a significant improvement on the performance of our application.
So to show it off, we built this other benchmark to test virtual table scrolling speed. We can see in Angular 1 that as we increase the number of tables that we're trying to scroll, the performance slows down. In Angular 2, it's dramatically better. But it's still, you can see that it's linked to the total number of elements that we have to watch. When we use immutable data structures, however, you can see that we're totally decoupled from the number of elements that we need to watch. And we've gone from an order n algorithm to an order 1 algorithm.
So to summarize, To go back to the original question we ask ourselves, why are we here? Why are we doing Angular? The answer is actually quite simple. We love Angular, and we learned a lot while building it. But we also know that Angular can be significantly simpler. It can be significantly more consistent. It can be more flexible, more productive, and much, much faster. While we are committed to Angular 1 and evolving it further, we also know that it will be irresponsible from us to not lead the community in the direction towards Angular 2.
Okay, one more question might be on your minds. You know that I love answering this question. I hate predicting the future, but what we can do is look at what we've done to date and our velocity. And so back in February, we announced the alpha of Angular 2, and you can find out about it on angular.io. Today, we're shipping a preview of the Angular 2 website. And while I don't like to predict the future, I will let you in on something that's going on at Google. This May, we're planning on migrating the first applications from Angular 1 to Angular 2. And these are big apps. We're going to take the learnings from that and from feedback from all of you who use Angular 2 to figure out when we're done and we can call it ready.
Now that we answered the simple question, why are we here? I think it's only fair to ask you, why are you here? Think about it. And if you are here in person, come and tell us. If you are joining us online, you can use Twitter or Google+ and post to us using hashtag, why are you here?
All right. Everyone, thanks so much. You can find these slides at this link on the screen. We've also started a Reddit Ask Me Anything session. We're going to be taking questions now and tomorrow, and then we're going to answer them live at the last session at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. For any questions we don't get to in the live session, we will answer them in the next week on Reddit. Thanks so much. Let's have a great conference.
Thank you.